Welcome to the Disrupt Your Career podcast, brought to you by Claire Harbour
and Antoine Tirant. We're passionate about helping everyone find fulfillment in their work life.
We believe that big, messy, uncharted career changes are inevitable, and it's up to you to decide.
Will you take control and disrupt, or allow yourself to be disrupted?
We wrote the book about it, and now we share here our conversations with other thinkers in this crucial area.
Settle down and get ready to listen to this dose of wisdom.
All right. So on this episode of the Disrupt Your Career podcast, I am delighted to be welcoming Ben Legg. Ben has had an incredibly impressive and varied career, just as we love them. Having started out in the military, then gone on to McKinsey, Coca-Cola, Google, and more in general management positions, before he ventured into the world of scale-ups and unicorns. He's had a ridiculous number of roles as advisor to fast-growing companies and is the founder and CEO of the Portfolio Collective, which houses over 10,000 professionals who have portfolio careers, and he's focused on helping entrepreneurs to reinvent the world. Ben, thank you for joining us and welcome.
Good to be here, Claire. Thank you.
Wonderful. Let's start, as we always do, with your career journey. You've been through many pivots and challenges in your career, started by leading troops in a messy war, followed by prominent names in consulting and FMCG, and then your startup and scale-up careers. You also have that massive array of advisory roles, and I'm really not very sure when you find time to sleep. Was your career created by design or through serendipity? And what have been your main achievements and challenges?
The reality is, I think, even in the old predictable world, that isn't the case now. I think it's always hard to really plan a career because the world changes too fast. I was ambitious when I grew up, but I was very quite entrepreneurial. Growing up, I'm not from a military family, but from about the age of 3, wanted to join the army. I just loved outdoor life, adventure, joined the scouts, joined the cadets, loved both. Yeah, I was always out on my bike, climbing trees, etc. So I kind of thought the army looks like a nice life. Then at school, I was very good at maths and physics and the other things. So I realized I wanted to study engineering. And then I discovered that the army loved engineers and would actually pay for me to go through university. Definitely the army was something I always planned. Beyond that, I didn't really know. I just wanted to know. I wanted to do something, make a difference to the world. So that could be stay in the army and become a general. It could be become a CEO. It could be go into politics. Could be run a charity. It didn't really matter. I just thought, get a good foundation and see where that takes me. And then from there, I actually have changed career about every 10 years with a lot of rounding. There's like the army, then big business, then sort of global tech, and now future of work, let's say. But none of those was planned. It was typically after about a decade, I'd maybe get a bit bored and think, what's next? Often it is when I had time to wind down and think, okay, that's one chapter that I should probably close. What's next?
Beautiful. It sounds like an ideal mix. And I love the regular fractions that you have created, even if you're rounding, to see those 4 different phases. In all those different environments from the military onwards, you've worked alongside some undoubtedly extraordinary leaders. What sort of lessons have you come across and really held on to from the different people you've worked with?
You're right. I have worked with a lot of really smart people. I think one of the best things about my career is the people I've worked with set good examples, challenge you, train you, develop you, always expect more. So I guess one of the things I've learned both as a CEO, as an entrepreneur, as a parent is always expect more. There's an element of it, people expect more, but in a nice way, not in a sort of mean way. People tend to rise to the challenge. So for example, give people stretch goals and then say, let me know how I can help. And people will try it. Whereas you give people goals they can achieve, they typically will achieve them, but you won't really innovate very much or do anything amazing. So just keeping everyone slightly out of their comfort zone, trying to do something they don't quite know, giving people goals they don't quite know how to achieve yet, but not something that will break them, so that you develop, 10% a quarter for the rest of your life or whatever it might be. It's kind of nice. So definitely expect more would be a really big one. I think the importance of 360 feedback, and I grew up quite confident and obsessed with like getting stuff done. And I'm quite good at getting a team to get all excited about it, but keep making sure every individual is in a good place. My default is to get the task done and make sure the team on average is very happy and, etc. But I've had some really good people say, okay, is everyone on the team happy? Let's take a look. Let's do a 360 feedback. Let's think it through. And just really pushing me to take the time to think about every single individual in the team rather than thinking of the team as a whole. That was something that took a few years or maybe even a few decades to sink in. But I think that's been a really big learning. Being calm in a crisis. I've been through a lot of crises, including war, and there's nothing to be gained by panicking or whatever. And especially as the leader, everyone expects you to be calm and thoughtful and rational, not laid back, but calm, not panicking. So I think I've had a lot of good role models who are just insanely calm when the proverbial hits the fan, as it were.
Beautiful. Well, I love the expect more. And certainly one of my favorite questions in any conversation, and especially when I'm coaching, is, and what else? Which I think is exactly the same kind of philosophy towards that, generating something that is beyond what either party might be expecting. Keeping calm, that's probably the one that I'm still working on the most. But what I do think is that the world would be a magnificently better place if everybody could be thinking about the happiness, the well-being of not only everyone in their team, but also of themselves. If we don't lead by example in that way and avoid getting burnt out or cynical or whatever it might be, then we're not doing a good enough job. And the world needs more leaders who think in the way that you're suggesting. So thank you for doing that and for being that way. That's wonderful.
And it does help when you start your career in the army that after that, everything else seems lower risk. What's the worst that can happen is, your company goes bust or someone gets fired. No one's getting shot. No one's stepping on mines.
We wrote an article years back now about former military leaders who went into business, and most of them had a comment of that kind to share with us. So definitely very important to remember. Let's talk then about the transition that you made from being this corporate employee to being a founder and advisor. It's a big change, possibly not as big as coming out of the military into business, but probably more relevant for our audience. So let's talk about that disruption and the challenges that it offered up to you.
I think I've always had an entrepreneurial streak on the side. I always assumed my career would be conventional. So Army, McKinsey, Coca-Cola, Google is pretty conventional. But for example, I've had side hustles as a teenager, and all the way through my life, I didn't realize not everyone had side hustles. So I've always had something going on. I mean, a fun one as a teenager, I went to an all-boys military boarding school and realized everyone liked to carry a condom in their wallet to prove that they were having sex, even if they weren't, but vast majority weren't. Everyone was too embarrassed to buy them. So I just went and bought boxes of 12 for something like £3 or £4 and sold them for £1 each, a very nice margin. Everyone was happy. At some point, everyone had one. And so then I started inventing games like water balloon fights with condoms, or game where you could pull it over your head, breathe in through your mouth, out through your nose, and it would make a funny Martian hat and everyone laughed. That then people started using them and then needing to buy another one. So, but then the coming back to being ambitious is with the money I made with my side hustles, I would do things like subscribe to The Economist age 15 or something. So it's kind of a fun entrepreneurial bent, let's say. Coming back to, when I finally dropped, working for other people, it was about 5 years ago. And I had some side hustles then, and I had a day job. And my day job was kind of annoying me for a bunch of reasons, but partly I was done with corporate politics, partly that I was being pushed to do things that were, quite frankly, borderline illegal. Not through anyone wanting to be a criminal, but basically not caring about safety and other things. But it was a regulated industry. My name was on the license. I wasn't prepared to do it. But in parallel, I just had these lovely side hustles. And my side hustles then and now really fall into three buckets. The first one is just working with founders. So a bit of angel investing, a lot of mentoring, a few board jobs, a lot of just connecting founders with other founders, etc. I just love helping founders build great companies. That probably is my core DNA. And obviously I am a builder. I'm actually a civil engineer, so I really am a builder, but I prefer building companies to building bridges. So that's the first part of my portfolio career. The second part is working with investors, doing a mixture of things, helping investors find good things to invest in, helping them screen deals, and also educating investors around how things like technology and regulation and other things work. And then the third bucket, I just kind of call thought leadership. I do a bit of teaching at Oxford University on entrepreneurship and career management and things. And I do the odd speech at conferences. And I wrote a book on the future of marketing. And those three are quite synergistic. Understanding founders and investors makes you better at both. Being linked to academia helps you be more thoughtful and structured about how you do them all. So it's all very synergistic. And when I ditched the day job back in 2019, it meant I had a full week to just spin off all those side hustles in whatever way made sense. So basically started professionalizing what I did. It was all a bit amateur when I had a day job. Some was paid, some was unpaid. I didn't really care. It was all fun. And then I started saying, right, what needs to pay? What am I okay doing for free? How do I charge? If a company doesn't have money but really want lots of my time, do I do it for free? Do I ask for stock options? But a lot of just thinking through, who am I? What am I offering? Who am I offering it to? How much am I charging? How do I organize my week? Building the Portfolio Collective, pro bono work, family, health, etc., all color-coded. So I was basically doing that for about a year or so. Didn't really know where I was headed. Portfolio career instead. I really liked helping people. And people would come to me and basically say, where's the effect of, Ben, on lockdown, I've been reflecting on life. I want out of corporate life, or I've been laid off. And your career looks kind of cool. How do I do that? And I thought, oh, that's dangerous to ask me. I haven't really worked out what I'm doing. I'm still muddling through. So I started off doing all these one-on-one calls, but I was kind of waffling and didn't know the answers to all their questions. And that was frustrating me. I like to have structure. On top of that, I was killing my calendar. I was doing like 15 or 20 hours a week of helping friends. And I love helping friends, but I thought, I'm not a charity. I still need to pay my own bills and do other stuff. So I solved, or at least thought I solved both problems by doing one thing, which is I launched a weekly workshop called the Portfolio Career Workshop. And what I did is I went out and interviewed about 30 portfolio professionals. So starting out, wildly successful, struggling, pivoting, asked them all a really good list of questions like, how do you work out who you are, what your passions are, what your skills are, how you differentiate? How do you build your personal brand? How do you become a thought leader? How do you pitch for work? How do you charge for work? What do you do yourself? What do you outsource? What's the best software? I turned all that into this workshop with the 8 steps of launching a portfolio career. And that way, when people said, Ben, can I pick your brains? I've done with corporate life. I say, sure, here's a link, see you Wednesday. So it cleaned up my calendar. That 20 hours went down to 1. And it meant I stopped waffling. I had this 20-something slide deck. And then it got a life of its own. So what then happened is, in this workshop, it was the same content every week, Wednesday 4 till 5, still remember it. And I said to people, right, introduce yourselves in chat. It was Zoom, so introduce yourselves in chat. There were too many people to introduce themselves live, let's say. But it was such a cool bunch of people. So on the same call, you'd get an ex-general who sat on a bunch of boards, and he'd say, I sit on the boards, I think I'm a lousy board member. I need some help being a better board member. You'd get a shoe designer from Timberland saying, I want to be an independent designer, but I don't know how to run a business. You'd get an architect saying, I've always been part of architecture firms, but I'm sure I can make this on my own, but I'm, financially illiterate or whatever. And you had all these really smart, really impressive people coming along to events, checking their ego at the door, admitting their weaknesses, asking for help, and then helping each other. But what happened when I had a workshop but not a community is after it, people would say, Ben, can you connect me with so-and-so? I think I've got a job for them. Ben, can you help me with so-and-so? I want to pick their brains. Ben, can you connect me with so-and-so? I want to barter. I'll do his website if he does my taxes. And all these cool, different permutations, combinations of how these independent professionals wanted to connect with each other. And that then became my time sink, is connecting people. And what I realized is we needed a community where we had courses and community and collaboration so that all these people can help each other and we can help from the center as well. So that's when I launched the Portfolio Collective, 2 or 3 months into lockdown. I just thought, right, I'm going to build a business, fund it myself for a bit so that rather than go and raise money, because that way we can get more momentum, see how many of my friends and their friends and their friends can we help have successful portfolio careers. Found a co-founder, Fiona, who's awesome. She worked in the creative industries, which is great because a lot of creatives are independent too, whereas my background's a bit more corporate. And we started building, and we've been building ever since. Fast forward to where we are now, the Portfolio Collective has 11,000 members around the world. And our mission remains pretty much what it's always been, to help professionals understand, launch, manage, and grow their portfolio careers. What's lovely is we've had virtually no churn. All 11,000 members are still involved. Obviously, some are less involved because maybe they've gone and got themselves a day job for a period of time, but everyone's coming back. Everyone's really helping each other. We have raised money since. So after I funded the first few months, we've raised £1.3 million from our members. So it's mostly 5 and 10K checks, but when you raise 200 of them, it really adds up. But what that means is we're built for the members, owned by the members, which is a really nice model, which means then our members also tell their friends, help each other, because everyone wants to help each other because they want to, but also because they've got skin in the game. So it's a really nice sort of mutually reinforcing community.
Wonderful. That does sound like an incredible ecosystem to have created, even if it was initially by accident. often these accidents are the best things that happen. Let's think on all this wisdom and experience that you've accumulated over the years and focus it on young people starting their careers at this point. What sort of advice would you give them?
So the first thing I'd say, start a side hustle as young as you possibly can. So in essence, the moment you hear this podcast, if you haven't got a side hustle, start one. Why? Why not? I mean, it's so easy. Just start doing stuff on the side, maybe for free as a hobby initially, but eventually find a way to make money. It teaches you entrepreneurial skills. It builds a network beyond your day job or your studies. It gives you confidence to go out and pitch stuff. It gives you learnings from your mistakes. I mean, you make loads of mistakes along the way too. It means you're making some extra money, which you can then either build a nest egg to train yourself in new skills, get you through a rainy day, or help you launch a portfolio career one day. So everyone should have something on the side that's making them happy and making them money. And it can go in so many different directions. You can write articles, have a newsletter, do dog breeding, dog walking, fashion design, whatever. It doesn't really matter. In my career before I ditched the day job, I've done property development. I've done buying and selling of actually alcohol. So I was in the army, tax-free alcohol, and would help people organizing weddings, get all their alcohol for the wedding tax-free. Public speaking here and there, a bit of consulting, the odd board job, helping startups for a little bit of stock options, so all sorts of random things. And that's my bias towards helping people build businesses lately, but there's so many other ways too. And so it's kind of like find something that you want to do and get started.
Absolutely. Fantastic advice. And certainly the scope for hustling when one is very young is there, but it's just so often not opened up as a possibility by parents or society or teachers or even social norms and rules. But anyway, wonderful advice. Let's hope there are either lots of parents listening who are going to encourage their offspring or even some young people. Let's think then about the idea of having a career as a portfolio career professional. What do you think are the biggest barriers to success and how can people avoid them?
There was a great survey by Forbes in Q4 of 22. And we actually had a community study with our members in Q4 23. They both came to similar conclusions, which is how many people want a portfolio career. If I start with that, which is more from the Forbes one, because obviously all our members want a portfolio career because they've got one. But from the Forbes study, they interviewed loads of people at every level of society. And they found that on average, 50% of people did not want to be part of a company. They wanted to be independent in whatever way, shape or form made sense. Which, by the way, most forecasts say that's what will happen anyway, because companies also want less people on permanent payroll.
Indeed.
What was extra interesting in that survey is 71% of what they called high performers did not want to be part of a company.
That's a big skew.
It's a big skew. And if you think about it, it's like those people are already successful. They're probably hardworking. They're probably intelligent. They're probably quite good networkers. So they are more confident they can go off and do it. People want it. But then you say, well, what are the barriers? There are three, and it came out in the Forbes survey and our own, really. The first one is fear of loneliness. In an organization, you have a team, you have a boss, you have the canteen, you have training courses, you feel like you're part of a tribe. Number two is just complexity, is most people in big corporates have a specialist job. You work in marketing, you work in finance, you work in ops, whatever it might be. As a portfolio professional, you're kind of a one-person business. So you do need to write the strategy, do the marketing, do the sales, do the fulfillment, do the finance. And that can be a bit scary. It's just a bit complex. And then number three was fear of consistent earnings, not fear of earnings. Like everyone knows they can make money on the side, but can you do it 12 months of the year? And so as we build the portfolio collective, we're saying, let's try and tackle those three things. The first one I think we can very much do is literally we're building, it is like a big family, the portfolio collective. It's lovely. And people are so good to each other and supportive. So that's really nice. On the complexity, we're doing everything we can, courses, articles, research, tools. On the third one, I wouldn't want to overpromise. Clearly, we help our members find work. We help them build their brand, do biz dev, expand their network. Ultimately, I think that's more on the individual, and what we can do is enable it. But ultimately, we can't give everyone enough work to fill the 40 hours a week. That's beyond, I think, any organization in the world's potential. But we can help people look in the right direction, pitch their best self, know what to charge, get a friend to refer you, that kind of thing. So I think we're trying to solve 2.5 of the 3 big barriers.
Fantastic. And you're right. I'd also question whether any of us should be aspiring in 2024 to be working 40 hours a week. But that's another question for out of here. But if you're getting it right, you can probably do it in less. Let's turn to the subject of career transitions and pivots. That's our core thing in this podcast and in much of our work. Obviously, most of your members are pivot survivors and or victors, depending on how they choose to perceive it, and you encourage further disruption. What do you think makes for great career agility? Beyond one of your obvious recommendations is do side hustles, and then you'll have tried lots of things. But beyond that.
Another is just network. And obviously with side hustles, we can network without a side hustle too. But the more you know other people in other industries, know people in other companies, know people in other countries, the world's less scary. Because it's like if you've only worked in one company, in one town, in one country, in one industry, the rest of the world looks a bit scary. But the more you expose yourself to that, the better. I say build a personal brand and a network consciously. So start with your LinkedIn. Just make sure your LinkedIn gives the best version of you and consciously build your network. So the starters, and it's amazing how many people haven't done this, is because LinkedIn is so helpful for finding connections, opportunities, interesting news, all sorts. Start off just saying, who are all the people I can remember I went to school with, and connect with them. Who are all the people I can remember from university, from job 1, job 2, job 3, from neighbors, just everyone that you know, connect with. But then I'd go beyond that, and that might take a few months to get through all of those. But then it's like, who do I want to know? Who do I admire? Okay, which journalists or bloggers write interesting stuff in subjects I care about? Either connect with them or follow them so you see their stuff. Which role models out there, do I think are cool? Connect with them. If I were to go independent, who would be the kind of people who might be my clients? Connect with them. And some people are so scared, but if you've got a nice profile and you're human and not salesy, it's not hard. I find I'll often just send connections to strangers just because if people have the hashtag future of work in their LinkedIn profile, I've probably sent them a connection request. Why? Because we're all passionate about the same thing. And I might drop a note, I might not. I find about 40 or 50% accept because they kind of realize we're both geeks on the future of work. Yet with nothing other than having a profile. I know right now I'm sort of connecting with people who are startup marketing leaders in Germany. We've got a client who needs them. And I'm just kind of saying, hey, might be an opportunity. I don't know, but people accept. But you just consciously shape your network rather than see what happens. So if you start building a decent personal brand, a decent network, getting yourself mentally exposed to other industries, and then ideally have a side hustle too, you're much more mentally agile, more polished, you're more likely to be approached for new opportunities because of your exposure, etc. So I think that would be it. Beyond that, I'd say, and this is stuff you can do in the day job or elsewhere, try to work in sort of multiple teams, multiple functions, etc. So when I was at Google, one of my jobs, those at Google, Coca-Cola, was director of training and development for a big part of Coca-Cola. And when we said, for example, what makes a good general manager, we said they need to have worked in multiple functions and multiple countries. So even though that wasn't necessarily for being a portfolio professional, it's that exposure, working in multiple functions, working in multiple countries. And these days, I'd probably say work in multiple industries. I've worked a lot of my life in advertising, probably more than any other industry, but the learnings from advertising technology are really relevant to education and to healthcare. A, they all need to understand marketing, but B, things like managing data, building products, org structure. There's a whole load of lessons you can take from one industry to another. And given that advertising is generally quite cutting edge, it's quite handy because it's people from healthcare or education look at me and say, oh, you know what modern companies operate like. Can we have some of that? I say, I don't understand healthcare. Don't care. We understand healthcare. You understand how to run a good tech company. So just, again, it's that exposure to multiple things.
Beautiful. And so important. Let's flip things right round now and think about organizations. What would you like to see organizations doing better when it comes to their own talent and career management? And as we said earlier, they're looking to shed people and have more people in an external ecosystem. How can everybody benefit more from gig workers becoming a growing phenomenon?
If you're a company, I think you're using about two parts. One is, what do you do for your people on payroll? But the other is, how do you best tap into portfolio professionals? Because both are really important. Obviously, I think more about the latter. How can companies leverage fractional professionals? But if I start with what they can do for their own employees, most people, even if they do want a day job, they typically want more flexibility. Some people want flexibility for a side hustle, which may or may not pay. Some people just want to spend a bit of time teaching at university or mentoring kids from disadvantaged backgrounds. So it may or may not be for money, but there's a side hustle. But there's obviously flexibility around family, kids, aging parents, charity, etc. So having more flexibility. Too many companies are still too rigid. I'm amazed at the amount of companies that ended lockdown and said, everyone back in the office without really thinking why. And I'm very social. I love FaceTime, but it's like, you got to have a reason. If people are writing slides, writing code, reading stuff, answering emails, they don't need to be in an office. What do you need to be in the office for? Bonding, brainstorming, team building, but not for everything. So just being thoughtful around, does anyone need to work 5 days a week? Can some people go down to 4 days, 3 days? Do everyone need to be in the office? Let's be more flexible around it so that the people that they want to stay are actually happy and fulfilled and have those slightly more flexible lives. And then on the how do they tap into fractional talent, I think companies need to be much more thoughtful around what work needs to be done by full-time employees versus fractional talent, because there's such a knee-jerk default to, if I need something done, I need to hire someone. But if you think about it, that takes you 3 to 6 months to find someone. Then often they need a 3-month induction. They haven't added any value for 9 months. That's not the speed the world works at anymore. Having a good idea and waiting 9 months to implement it will basically mean your company will die. So really, if you need someone fast, or if it's a project, or it doesn't justify 5 days a week, think about fractional talent. And what I say is, don't wing it. Too many people have said, well, I hired a fractional person once and it didn't work. And I'll say, so what was your process? A friend introduced you to a friend who said they're a fractional CFO. She didn't work out. Okay. Did you think through industry experience? Did you think through availability? Did you think through personality fit? Did you think about their passion for your industry? Did you do an induction? No. So it's like, no wonder they failed. It's your fault. You probably picked the wrong person and you didn't help them succeed. So really saying, okay, even though it's a fractional hire, treat it as if it's a full-time hire. You can just send up a rigor, just do it faster. Write a proper job description. Think through the experience required. Have a long list, filter it to a short list, and interview the short list, give them case studies. And then when you pick one, give them an induction. It might need to be an accelerated induction because they're only part-time, but give them at least a few sessions on company culture, strategy. Make sure they meet the key people. Make sure you agree on goals. So I think there's a lot of growing up to do from companies getting the most out of fractional talent, but also getting the most out of their full-time employees.
Wonderful. Then there's fantastic scope to develop, isn't there? Talking of developing, Ben, what are your most exciting projects for the rest of the year?
Within the Portfolio Collective and then my own portfolio career, within the Portfolio Collective, we're doing a lot of work around how to drive even more engagement. It's so important. So, and in particular, it's not how can we help members interact with us or even interact with each other in events, it's interact with each other through the platform. So how can we help them find the right collaborators? How can we help them form teams to get more done as a team? When you think about the power of community, it's not just people turning up in courses or turning up in events or whatever. It needs to be sub-teams forming that I don't even know about, but people find each other, collaborate, get stuff done, have an amazing time, etc. So that's really exciting for me. Another 2 things in the Portfolio Collective. One is we're looking to do quite a big raise in the next few months. And with that, to really overhaul the platform. Our platform is beautiful and the content's amazing, but it's a bit slow and a bit clunky and we don't have an app. So that's exciting. And we're also planning to do a sort of structured launch within the US. Organically, we're doing well in the US, but it's nowhere near as good as Europe. So we need to take that seriously. On the portfolio career side, I've got some really exciting clients. I've just taken on one more board job and might be about to take on another in industries where the companies are really trying to sort of change the world for the better. So I always find it exciting to get to know a new company or industry and help them do something amazing.
Well, I'm not terribly surprised that you've got so much on your plate, Ben, but that does sound very exciting. It's been an incredibly rich and interesting conversation, and I'm so grateful that you took the time to join me. Thank you, Ben. Please keep us posted of all developments.
I will do, Claire. Thank you.
We hope you enjoyed hearing from this month's guest as much as we did.
Do go and check out our work on disrupt-your-career.com and come back soon. Thank you.